The mistake was underestimating you, dismissing you as an afterthought, viewing you through the lens of their own arrogance, assuming that silence meant submission, that patience meant passivity. The world has a habit of misjudging the quiet ones, the ones who endure, the ones who do not react to every insult, who do not lash out at every injustice, who do not beg for validation from the undeserving. They assume that a lack of immediate retaliation is weakness, that restraint is the absence of power. But they never stop to consider. Some storms do not announce themselves. Some build in silence, gaining force beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to unleash everything. And by the time the sky darkens, by the time the winds shift, by the time the first bolt of lightning cracks through the air, it is already too late. Society has conditioned people to believe in the illusion of control, that structure and order are permanent, that power belongs only to the ones who hold the loudest voices, that the strong are those who take by force. And so, those who operate in subtlety are ignored, dismissed, overlooked. But power is not always loud. Strength does not always seek attention. And the ones who rise in silence, they are the ones who are truly dangerous, because they do not seek to prove their strength. They simply become it. And by the time the world takes notice, by the time the fools who mocked them realize their mistake, the storm is already overhead. Weak minds expect destruction to arrive with a warning. They assume that those who will change the course of the world must first be seen, must be acknowledged, must be granted permission to exist. But storms do not ask permission. They do not request an audience. They do not wait for an invitation. They arrive, and once they do, nothing remains the same. The ones who once felt secure in their own power scramble for shelter, desperately trying to outthink what cannot be stopped. But preparation is useless against inevitability, and by the time the first drop of rain hits the ground, by the time they recognize what is happening, it is already far too late. This is what people fail to grasp. The ones who endure, who suffer in silence, who take every wound, every betrayal, every humiliation and store it. They are not broken. They are charging. They are waiting. They are sharpening themselves into something unrecognizable, something unstoppable. And when the moment comes, when the dam breaks, when the force of everything they have become is finally unleashed, the world does not know what to do with them, because they never expected it. They thought they had them figured out, thought they had won, thought they had rendered them irrelevant. But no one is irrelevant when they become a force of nature. Modern society does not teach people how to handle true power. It teaches compliance. It rewards those who remain within the lines, who follow the rules of the game, who accept their place. It does not know what to do with those who refuse to be categorized, who do not fit neatly into the expectations set before them. And when those people rise, when they refuse to conform, when they demand their own space, society reacts with fear, because it never accounted for them. It never considered that someone who was cast aside, ignored, forgotten, could return with the force of a hurricane. Psychologically, the human mind craves predictability. It finds comfort in assumptions, in patterns, in knowing what to expect. But what happens when those expectations are shattered? When someone they dismissed as powerless suddenly holds all the cards? Panic, confusion, desperation. Those who never had to prepare for real competition, who built their confidence on the illusion that some people simply remain beneath them, collapse under the weight of their own arrogance. And suddenly, the ones who once held all the control, who once dictated the rules, are left scrambling in the aftermath of something they were never built to withstand. This is why the underestimated always win in the end. Because while others are performing, while others are seeking recognition, while others are relying on their status to protect them, the storm is building. The storm is learning. The storm is collecting every scar, every lesson, every ounce of pain, and refining it into something lethal. And then, when the time comes, the storm does not hold back. It does not show mercy. It does not hesitate. It destroys. And in its wake, nothing that existed before remains. There's no power greater than transformation. There's no force stronger than the one who has rebuilt themselves from the ground up, who has shed their past weaknesses, who has risen from the ashes of what was meant to destroy them. And this is what they never saw coming. They thought the damage done to you was permanent. They thought you would remain broken. They thought you would never rise again. But flipped the game. Underdog victories are not just moments of triumph. They are recalibrations of reality itself. The world operates on a system of silent contracts. Who is supposed to win? Who is meant to lose? Who remains in the shadows? Who gets to stand in the light? But when the underdog rises, those contracts burn. The expected order fractures. The illusion of permanence is shattered. And nothing satisfies the human psyche more than proving it was never fate that determined anything, only will. Winning when no one expects it does something irreversible to the mind. It alters perception, rewires belief systems, reshapes the very fabric of identity. Because before that moment, life was dictated by limitation. What could and could not be done, what was out of reach, what belonged to others, but never to you. And then suddenly, all of it is called into question. The impossible becomes possible. The barriers were never real. And that realization is more powerful than any external victory. Because once the mind understands that limits are self-imposed, nothing in this world can ever truly contain it again. There is something primal about defying expectations. It satisfies a psychological hunger older than civilization itself, the need to conquer, to overturn, to take back what was denied. The brain, wired for survival, thrives on contrast, struggle followed by dominance, pain followed by evolution, losing, suffering, enduring. These things prime the psyche for an explosive awakening. And when victory finally comes, it is not just a win, it is a rebirth. Underdog victories do not simply feel good, they alter reality itself. Not just in the eyes of the one who wins, but in the perception of every witness. Those who assumed dominance was permanent begin to hesitate. Those who relied on an unshaken hierarchy feel the tremors beneath their feet. Power structures are not maintained by strength alone. They are held together by the belief that they must exist. But when the underestimated rise, that belief dissolves. And what replaces it? Doubt, fear, disruption. Psychologically, overcoming an impossible battle creates an unshakable foundation for the future. Because once an underdog has won once, the mind remembers. It imprints victory into the subconscious. It recalls the taste of defiance, the high of proving reality wrong. And it seeks that feeling again. A single victory, one moment of undeniable conquest, sets off a chain reaction that alters the course of an entire life. because the body adapts to pain, but the mind adapts to power. And once it has tasted real power, submission becomes unthinkable. Society does not encourage the rise of the underestimated. It thrives on predictability, on keeping the broken broken, on convincing the weak that their place is permanent. Because an underdog who does not rise is harmless, but one who refuses to stay beneath the boot, that is a threat to everything. And the moment an underdog achieves victory, it spreads, it infects, it teaches others that they too can claw their way up, that they too can dismantle the illusion, that power is not reserved for the chosen, it is seized by the relentless. Winning when no one expects you to does not just change the future, it reprograms the past. Every failure, every humiliation, every moment spent being dismissed and overlooked is suddenly transformed. They are no longer evidence of weakness. They become the foundation of the storm. The suffering endured was not for nothing. It was preparation. It was fuel. Every scar becomes a testament to survival. Every rejection becomes proof of inevitability. And the mind, once convinced of limitation, now sees momentum. This is why underdog victories are more than simple wins. They shift identity at its core. A man who was expected to lose, and then did not. That man is no longer the same. He is seen behind the curtain. He has witnessed the fragility of what once seemed unbreakable. And now, he walks differently, speaks differently, sees the world not as a fixed structure, but as something malleable, something meant to be bent, shaped, conquered. Nothing terrifies the established order more than an underdog who refuses to die, because the first victory is only the beginning. It does not end with a single battle. It spreads like wildfire through the psyche, demanding more fights, more victories, more moments of shattering illusions. And once that hunger has been awakened, once the mind has tasted the reality of its own strength, there is no turning back. There is no return to the old self. There is no return to weakness. An underdog victory is not just about the moment of triumph. It is about the destruction of everything that once held you down. It is about stepping beyond the limits set by others, about proving that the rules do not apply to those willing to break them. It is about becoming something else entirely, because the world only respects one thing, a force too powerful to deny, too relentless to tame.